Hey everybody, this is Pastor Brandon. This week we continue our special series entitled Walk It Like I Talk It, which calls us into a deeper understanding and commitment to discipleship as we learn together. Now, each week there'll be a different speaker sharing a message, and then those in person will have a chance to actually discuss the talk. For those who are unable to attend in person, each week I'll share a devotion on the same topic and the same scripture. Now, please understand this is different from what those in person will hear. Now, this week, Greg Norman is discussing Christian growth through study with a particular emphasis on Romans 12:2. So, when I personally talk to people about school, elementary school, high school, those types of things, I usually say that I passed. I wasn't at the bottom of the class, but I certainly wasn't at the top. I've learned, though, as I started studying to be a pastor, that I actually did quite well. I get good grades in my classes. The reason is because I liked and wanted to study what I was studying, to get deeper into scripture and to the history of the church and things like that. And funnily enough, when I was younger, I didn't want to study the Bible. I didn't want to have discussions or theological debates, anything like that. But I grew up. And as I grew up, I knew I wanted to make sure that what I was sharing and teaching, first to youth as I was in youth ministry, and then to adults when I became a senior pastor, I wanted to make sure everything I said, everything I did was correct. It was very important to me. And it's important to the United Methodist Church as well, and that's why they require us to take classes, to study, to be evaluated. Each each year, I have to basically go before a group of pastors and leaders, and they have to make sure that what I am sharing, what I'm discussing, is correct. And so, not only is that a good way for me to be evaluated and to make sure that I have a good foundation, but it's a way for us to all be kind of in that way. It's a benefit for me and for the churches I serve. Now, the hymn that we sang at the beginning of the service, How Firm a Foundation, um, the hymn talks about this, that we have a foundation in Jesus Christ. And it's only with this foundation that we can live and move through life. Romans 12:2 says, "Do not conform any longer to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you will be able to test and approve what God's will is, his good, pleasing, and perfect will." Now, the problem that I see, that we're seeing throughout the Christian faith, I feel like, is that so many profess to be Christians, but their foundation is based on their skewed understanding of Scripture, their skewed understanding of Jesus, and the skewed understanding of what a Christian, what a disciple is supposed to be. And it's not basing any of it on actual truth. Now, some choose to use the foundation that they've used their entire life and never really built upon it. Can you imagine what would happen to your home if you never checked or maintained the foundation? Now, maybe not necessarily in your lifetime, but maybe as your kids took over or you took over from a family member or something like that, eventually your house would be in big trouble, right? Now, I'm not saying that the spiritual foundation that you begin with isn't good. I'm not saying that. But you need to continue to maintain and grow and renew it. You have to make sure that it's solid. Again, this is like a house. You can't have a foundation that's never checked on. You can't have a foundation that's questionable. And as Romans 12:2 says, it's only through renewing your mind that we can make sure that we're in line with God. We need to renew our mind regularly. We need to renew our heart, our soul, our spirit regularly. It's important that we do that because sometimes we can start drifting away without realizing it. Again, it's like the foundation of a house. If you don't regularly check it, a small problem could eventually get much worse. You could have mold, you could have cracks in the foundation, and if they're not checked, you may think that your foundation is solid, but it really isn't. And eventually it's going to crumble, and you're going to be in big trouble. You see, our foundation is not this world or this nation, but rather Jesus Christ. Again, Romans 12:2 points to the fact that we must not be conformed any longer to the pattern of this world. Now, the world has a different criteria, a different idea of what your foundation should be. I think we can probably safely say our foundation, if we were to base it on this world, is power or money. And that's our foundation. And quite honestly, we know those can crumble very easily. Those are not solid foundations. Those are not safe foundations. So we have to be careful. You see, as we consider our spiritual foundation, we have to continue to delve deep, to study Scripture, to pray regularly, and to seek God's will. Because if we don't, we'll never grow. We'll never make sure, we'll never maintain, renew, have a safe and solid foundation. Not too long ago, a lot of schools started, and we send our kids to school to grow, to make sure they have a solid foundation in all sorts of different subjects. Science, math, all these different elements. And we want them to have a solid foundation in those. And as Christians, and more importantly as disciples, we have to do the same. We have to continue to grow, to continue to study. So I ask you to think about this. What are some ways you can study and seek God's will? I mean, that's really part of what we're doing with this whole series is looking at ways we can grow ourselves as disciples, how we can become more in line with the discipleship elements of being followers of Jesus Christ. So think about these questions. Do you pray regularly? Do you take part in a Bible study? And individually, do you study Scripture on your own? And then, do you take part in a Bible study as a group? Maybe it's a Sunday school. Maybe it's a small group. Do you do that? If not, do you need to find one? Those are elements that we're going to be working on as a church. We're working on having prayer groups or prayer team. We're working on having Bible studies. We'll have study series that you can do on your own as well. Do you attend regular worship services? Whether it's in person or online. Although, obviously, our desire would be for you to be in person because, honestly, it's through those connectional elements that really help us to grow. So as we grow and as we study, we can truly seek to find God's will so that we can find out where He wants us to be. Are you ready to be a disciple of Jesus Christ? So consider how you can go through that life. Something to think about. Thanks, God bless, and see you next time.